to our Transformation Thursday podcast. Today, we're hosting a virtual NED Talk focused on an emerging and extremely concerning substance, cychlorphine. As the Prevention and Wellness Hub of Northeast Delta HSA, it is our responsibility to stay informed about emerging trends related to the use, misuse, and abuse of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. Staying ahead of these trends allow us to better educate our communities, strengthen prevention efforts, and help reduce or delay the onset of substance use. Today's topic, cychlorphine, is a synthetic opioid that is reportedly more toxic than fentanyl and significantly more difficult to reverse in opioid situations. We are bringing attention to this issue because cychlorphine has already been identified within our region. The North Louisiana Crime Lab issued a warning about cychlorphine, confirmed to be present across multiple areas in Northeast Louisiana, and one area listed was Ouachita Parish. Before access and exposure increase, it is critical that we share the information currently available so individuals, families, providers, and communities can be informed and prepared to educate others. To help us explore this issue more in depth, we are joined by an outstanding panel of experts. Dr. Gonzales, addictionologist with New Hope Addiction Recovery, Marcus Bosley, licensed addiction counselor with the Bosley Clinic, and Kara Etienne, LMSW and opioid prevention manager for Northeast Delta HSA. Thank you all for joining this important conversation.
Thank you.
All right. So before we get started with the discussion, in one sentence, what concerns you most about the next wave of synthetic opioids? We'll start with Dr. Gonzales.
Well, hi, everybody. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's a great question. So what really concerns me the most about this new wave of synthetic opioids or other drugs is that they're becoming increasingly more potent, but that's not really what I'm focused on. I'm really more concerned about the unpredictable nature of it, and it's harder for users, ourselves, and first responders or anybody encountering these to really accurately assess before real tragedy happens. I think that the main thing is that the next wave of these synthetic opioids really threatens to outpace our awareness, right? Meaning that people are exposed to substances stronger than they expected before us, the communities, realize they're present, So I think that's one thing we've learned repeatedly in the last decade or so. And that's really been the undercurrent of the driver of the overdose phenomenon. It started with fentanyl, then it pivoted over to this exotic like kratom, and cyclorphine is just another iteration of that in the long generational history of opioids.
All right. Ms. Kara Etienne.
So one of the things that concerns me the most is our ability to respond. One of the things that I always say is it seems like every time we begin to make some impact, that we feel like we're making a difference in saving lives and we're getting Narcan where we're supposed to, then something new comes along that, like Dr. Gonzales said, is maybe more potent or is impacting and reaching us at a much faster rate than it typically has in the past. And then we're trying to then come back to the drawing board and reconfigure what it is that we're doing and how we're going to still approach and save as many lives as possible.
Thank you. And Mr. Bosley.
Yeah, I believe that treatment must become more faster, more flexible, and more medically integrated than ever before. Synthetic opioids such as fentanyl and emergent analogs are changing the entire landscape of treatment because they no longer follow the traditional pathways of treatment. It's just like a person coming into this new system of these new drugs. They don't even know that they're taking fentanyl. They don't know that they're taking any type of synthetic drugs. They're thinking they're consuming their other products. So they're just going strictly from, they don't get a chance to enjoy the recreational side, which I know is a bad thing for me to say, but they don't get a chance to enjoy the recreational side. They go strictly from taking a substance to dependence or from taking a substance to death. Like there's no in-betweens on that. So it's not following the traditional path. So we don't know how to diagnose. We don't know if we're not fully educated on what we're doing. We don't know how to look at the drug, the whole entire landscape of the drug. We don't know how to recognize, withdrawal symptoms We don't know when the person is going to go through an overdose. Because it's the change of thing is moving so rapidly. We can even find we're not the traditional path we are focused on is not even there anymore. So that's what that's the way I see it.
Yeah. And so speaking to that, when Mr. Bosley said that things are changing really fast with the opioid synthetic drugs and the overdoses, Dr. Gonzales, for listeners unfamiliar with cychlorphine, what is it and why are experts becoming increasingly concerned about it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So cyclorphine is it's just a growing number of these hundreds of different analogs of different drugs. I mean, we see it in not only opioids, we see it in benzodiazepines, cannabinoids, etc. Now, what Mr. Bosley clearly elucidated is like these are highly consequential substances. So what I'm really concerned about is historically we transitioned, it was opium, and then opium, they were going to cure opium addiction with morphine, right? So we know how that went. And then heroin was supposed to be the answer to that. Now fentanyl came out of heroin, right? So that is a drug that has a really clear, thin, clinical usage. It's used for surgery, for intense pain. It's on and off really fast in a controlled environment. The reason being is, what cyclorphine really scares me about. Not only is it this new player, this unknown participant in the party of the drugs, but it's plays by the same rules as fentanyl, which we don't fully understand completely yet. And the therapeutic dosage and the where you get high to respiratory arrest, so that you might have this for opium, this for morphine, this fentanyl is already like this. So the potency of cyclorphine is purported to be much times higher than fentanyl. My other concern is this: we live in a landscape where peptides are the thing. People are exploring new ways to do things, and I've seen cyclorphine even described as a peptide. So, it has many masks. It has many ways of insinuating itself into our culture without proper surveillance. We haven't really caught up public health wise to this drug. And everybody on this panel knows we are the agents of public health. We are the voices that really get out there and beat it up. I know that we like to have crowds full of kids, crowds full of people in different, arenas like criminal justice, anything like that, churches. But when we get up there, we have a long way to go to educate, right? We have to start from basic knowledge of hey, heroin, right? And then so the educational piece is not only a large tome of things to bring to people in awareness and get their, stir their own misconstrued ways of dealing with it or whatever we are used to thinking about drugs or drug addicts. Now we have an added layer of sophistication, and we can come to the table, hey, we don't know what we can tell you. We don't know what's out there, but we know it's dangerous. And we also don't know properly how we want to intervene on this yet. We do have a lot of interventions that are very effective for drugs, but as everybody has elucidated, this is just a new animal playing. So that's what our challenge is, and I don't think it's a fear. I don't think it's a lacking. I think it's a challenge, and we're good at meeting challenges.
Absolutely. And speaking to that public health component, as public health advocates, Kara, what trends are prevention specialists seeing in communities regarding awareness or lack of awareness around emerging synthetic opioids?
Okay, thank you for that. So we're seeing 4 major trends in regards to this awareness or lack of. The first one is the gap between awareness and action. Statistics show that while there is high awareness, there's low readiness. So roughly about 71 to 78% of adults are aware of Narcan, but only about 5.6% of them carry it. And we're talking about people who are either active users or know someone who actively use. We also have shifting demographics and disparities. There's such things such as age invisibility. A lot of the content that we see in regards to opioid education is geared primarily to younger demographics. However, there are older adults who are more likely to be prescribed opioids. And I tell people all the time, that's when you come in contact with, accidental overdoses. You have a lot of people, as Mr. Bosley spoke earlier, that are coming in contact with fentanyl and other synthetic opioids and are not aware of it. And so a lot of these people have been using for extended periods of time. And while they think they're purchasing, maybe if they've been addicted to meth for 20 or 30 years or using off and on for 20 or 30 years, they're not knowing now that their dealer has started cutting fentanyl and other synthetic opioids into those products. We're also seeing, again, like we've been talking about, that the synthetic, the counterfeit pill awareness, and also now these other new synthetic opioids that are extremely potent come about. And so our public awareness is slow to shift to the awareness that we need to be providing to individuals. And then also a lot of those individuals that are using are not in those traditional places where we're promoting and providing that education to. We're doing TV ads and commercials, but how many of them are sitting and actually in front of the TV? Where do we put these things in boots on the ground and getting that awareness out there to them? And then also our overdose fatality trends. Typically what we've done is the moment we start seeing a decline, we think we've beat it and we've got it, like I spoke to earlier, but we're slow to, and like Mr. Bosley said, we're slow to adjust and revamp our treatment approach. There's places that have mobile medication assisted treatment that's taking that treatment approach and taking it out directly to communities and things and populations. And that's something that we have to become more aware of and cognizant of, especially here, not only in the state of Louisiana, but in Northeast Louisiana, because of our very rural and remoteness to the problems it is that we have. We have people that are overdosing and experiencing overdoses on riverfront levees. And there's multiple levees in multiple parishes in this 12 parish area that we serve. And so a lot of times by the time they are found, the fatality has already occurred. We also have to work in working on those fatality trends. We have to educate what we call or consider the lay person. It's those individuals who are not connected on the medical side, who's not healthcare or addiction providers, and even those individuals who aren't using. They have to be aware of and know and be prepared to respond. That's why the Good Samaritan Act is in effect here in our state, so that individuals know and are protected and able to save lives when needed, where needed.
Thank you so much for that, Karen. You spoke a lot about the gaps and the need to bridge those gaps in educating our communities. And on the other side of that, as we continue to educate, people are experiencing the overdose effects and the effects of the addiction. So, Mr. Bosley, as synthetic opioids continue to evolve and become more potent, how do you think addiction treatment approaches will need to adapt?
Treatment approaches must adapt by strengthening collaborations amongst behavioral health providers. Medical professionals, recovery support systems must move away, like I stated, from the one-size-fits-all model and to individualized treatment and planning grounded in evidence-based treatments. Like contingency management, medicated-assisted therapies. That's something that Dr. Gonzales and I talk about all the time, is medicated-assisted therapies. A lot of people don't have the strength enough to fight some of these things on their own due to their frontal, I don't want to talk too much in it, but their frontal lobe is being deteriorated. So they don't have like the awareness, the things that just tell them that a lot of us have to say, hey, you don't need to do those extras. You don't need to do that. So that stuff, trauma-informed recovery and orientated systems. Counselors must also recognize that many clients enter into treatment today must also recognize that these clients are becoming, they come with higher overdose histories. They come with higher exposure to synthetic opioids. So the normal everyday form of treatment just doesn't work for these individuals. This means that treatments must focus on not only on abstinence, but also in stabilization, emotional regulation, relapse prevention, and focus strictly on harm reduction. And we also must, in that same sense, we must also build this rapport with these individuals, because with some of them, we look at these drugs, and a lot of people and their families look at them in a certain way, and they're coming into treatment with us, and they're thinking that we carry those same biases. So we must let them know, hey, with some of our people who have experienced, who's went through treatment that's on a professional side, they need to be talking to them and advise them like, hey, this is what we're going through. This is how we got through it. This is how we experienced it. To let them know you just don't have people who are just sitting on a high horse looking down at them, just trying to treat them and bring them up. You have people who can look at them at our level and bring them all up to this thing. So our counselors must also focus on that. We must focus on, just overall awareness and harm reduction. My main thing with what I do is harm reduction. I even opened up a store that people were like, yeah, you're an addiction counselor. Why would you open up a store like that? Well, the store that I opened up, I know that it's coming from Louisiana approved products. I know it's coming from, everything. So I know what's in it, what's not in it. I know these individuals who want to consume this product, if they're buying off the street, there's a potential that fentanyl's inside of it. It's a potential that other analogs are inside of it. But when you purchase something from a store, you go to Dr. Gonzales for your treatment for your meds or prescription, then you know that you're getting exactly what you're supposed to get with nothing else involved. So that helps mitigate the chances for overdose or the chances to consume other products that you necessarily didn't even want in the beginning. So that's where I am with it.
Dr. Gonzales, are overdose interventions becoming more difficult because of the newer substances?
Well, I think the answer is that some of the things we use to intervene still work, but the way we use them is a little bit new to us. So let me explain a little bit different. So whenever we talk about a new drug comes on the scene and you have other substances at play too, Kara really well, you described it really good, Kara, about like, hey, someone may be a chronic stimulant addicted person or benzodiazepine, right? So as you purchase these drugs and you have an overdose, I don't think a lot of us are really doing or getting in front of people well enough to say, look, naloxone is still a great intervention. Naloxone. It still works for opioids and it still works for this. But how does it work? I think that we need to really have a more robust template or protocol for how to address an overdose. Sometimes you need to use a lot more naloxone for these type of substances. Sometimes you're not done with that first administration. Like some of these things are very highly fat soluble and hence they stay around a lot longer and they take a while to metabolize. So you may have gotten somebody out of an overdose, you're on the way to the hospital, or you said, hey, you're okay, we're going to leave. But this could still be metabolized where you have more cyclorphine coming out of the fat. And then guess what? You have another overdose. So I think what it really is doing is, traditionally we've had barriers to naloxone. I know that everybody on this call could speak to that. There's been, we meet some resistance at other systems like hospitals, or, churches. But I believe that naloxone kind of belongs, it should be everywhere. It's kind of like an AED. It's kind of like something that we would want someone to have in their place of business regardless. So my thing is this: naloxone still works. We got to beef up the availability, make it like a lot more accessible to people. We got to really educate, and we got to find exactly what you're saying, Kara. Like if we're talking, we want to make sure someone's on the other side of that, hearing what we have to say. So engagement is a big piece too. So
thank you for that, Dr. Gonzales. Kara, speaking to that, being that naloxone, and we believe that as well at Northeast Delta, that is still the best intervention for an opioid overdose. What populations are currently most vulnerable and what prevention messaging is most effective right now?
Okay, so I'm going to break that one down into two. I want to talk about the demographics of the population and then the biological and situational factors relating to them. So typically adults age 35 to 44 have experienced the highest rate of opioid related deaths, whether it's true opioid or synthetic opioid. However, we have seen adults 65 and older begin to increase in recent years. Males die from overdose at 2 to 3 times the rate of females. And then by rate of population, American Indian and Alaska Native have the highest opioid death rates, followed by non-Hispanic Blacks. And I emphasize that because when I first started, it was Caucasian females between the ages of 35 to 44 that had the highest overdose rates. And this was like 2018, 2019. So that demographic has completely changed in that time frame. And then, of course, socioeconomic status. Individuals living in poverty or communities with high income inequality, as well as those who lack higher education, are disproportionately impacted as well. Some of the biological and situational risk factors that we see: loss of tolerance, people who have either stopped using, gone into treatment, have been sober for a while. A lot of times we see those individuals, when they do begin to reuse, they begin at the rate at which they were using prior to going into treatment, not realizing that their tolerance has decreased. So we see a lot of overdoses happen because of that. Of course, because of polysubstance use, Dr. Gonzales has spoken about that pretty heavily. And that's just mixing various substances together at once. Also, Mr. Bosley talked about it, contaminated drug supply, cutting these products with fentanyl to create a stronger product to give you a better high. My grandmother always said, you know, the drug dealers only care about that almighty dollar. So they don't care what they put in the product. They're selling you a dream that they have the best product, and you not realizing that, yeah, that product is now able to kill you. And then, of course, underlying health issues, people having maybe COPD or already have respiratory issues. Opioids suppress your respiratory system. And so a lot of people are not aware of that. And so if they already have those issues and they're using, they're more likely to also die. And so prevention messaging. The state of Louisiana has a large prevention messaging simply titled "One Pill Can Kill." We're trying to get them to understand and know that whether you're using the product in the pill format, or if you're taking it and crushing it, and whatever way you're using, now it only takes, instead of even just saying one pill can kill, even one use can kill. That's what we want them to know. Now it's only taking one time, whether it's your first time or whether it is your first time after being off of the substance for a while, maybe after ending coming out of treatment. All it's taking is one time, and we're seeing a lot of individuals. It breaks our hearts to go into the places that we go to, and we go back around, and by the time we make our rounds again, we're being informed that someone used after having discharged from treatment, maybe a month or two, and they're no longer with us. And so we're really trying to get that message out. One pill can kill, one time can kill.
Thank you so much, Kara. Mr. Bosley, Kara spoke a lot about educating the public. So how important is it for counselors and behavioral health professionals to stay educated on emerging substances before they become widespread in the communities?
Continuing education is no longer just a professional requirement for me. It's a public safety issue. By the time substances become highly visible in the community, many individuals already have overdosed. They've already been to jail. They've already experienced high, severe consequences. Like Dr. G said earlier, what education gives is information about, like naloxone. Women have a higher fat substance in their body. Not saying anything, about anybody, but that's just what it is. Men are more leaner, so those drugs actually will be harder for a woman to get over. So sometimes they have prescribed a higher dose for a woman, even if she is using it at the same rate as an individual. So people need to know that education also is important, because these drugs are moving so fast and rapidly. They're emerging superly fast. And, if professionals are informed, they risk misidentifying symptoms, misunderstanding withdrawal presentations, and using ineffective interventions and treatment. What else I have? Like, staying educated allows counselors to recognize early patterns in education problems. So we're able to learn why an individual is using, why individuals are using. what about relapse? Just like what Carol was talking about, when a person leaves a treatment center, they haven't used in a while, so their tolerance is down, and so they think they can still take it the same rate that they took prior. But if you're not educated, you don't know to talk to them about relapse interventions or relapse prevention. So what you're doing is saying, hey, you can't, if you do go back out there, which you hope that they don't, do not use at the same rate. You have to start off a little slow. And we have to talk like that to these individuals. We just can't talk abstinence to somebody who has been using over the years. We have to talk about harm reduction. That's our main thing, is harm reduction. So don't go back out there and use 2 pills when when you've been in treatment for 2 months. You don't have that same, you get what I'm saying. Cut that part.
Yeah.
All right, that's it.
I do. And I appreciate the sentiment on that as well, is being more real and more aware of what the clients that we see, what they're experiencing and what the potential is that they're going back to, and speaking to that as opposed to speaking to maybe a reality that does not apply to them. So I appreciate the sentiment there. Dr. Gonzales, what advancements in addiction medicine or treatment give you hope despite the rise of stronger synthetic opioids?
Well, as I was going to say, the consideration of addiction medicine, like actually a valid medical practice is addiction medicine, is what gives me hope. Like, we're learning more and more about like access to care. We're learning more and more that this is a chronic disease state, and to everybody on this podcast point, integrating that, right? Treating that as a really valid medical problem. That's my first thing that gives us hope. And we are more and more experiencing that. The second thing that gives me hope is that as we talk about like, hey, we're not familiar with the idea that tolerance can drop from, a little bit of abstinence for use. We're not really able to quantify the amount of drug in a substance, but what we are able to mobilize is something that we all are connected to. And this generation of people coming up and really learning to be sophisticated with social media, with those type of, congregating spaces, those third spaces. I mean, we think, I'm 50 years old, so I tend to be like those kids today. But what they are actually doing is they're being human. Humans are the most resilient, adaptable creatures ever. And we talk about this all the time. Marcus and I, Kara and I have said this, like there are really, really innovative people out there in the streets beating it up. If you go to California, go to St. Louis, you go to Florida, people are mobilizing. They're going to the alleys, the drugs, they go to the dens and they're saying, look, hey, how do you feel? Boom, we could pop them with a shot of buprenorphine right there. There's expounding amount of evidence. Like, I'm partnered with companies that offer long-acting injectable drugs. The advent of the long-acting injectable drug is the answer to addiction, right? That is the answer to a behavioral process that is typically reinforced by the drugs we give for addiction medicine. If I give someone buprenorphine, they're going to feel relief for a couple hours. But when that drops, they're going to be feeling like craving. So that cycle really is the same process of a drug. So guess what? When something comes along, they have a hard day, they're not really, getting the best that they could get out of their treatment, and they have a predictable and understandable, it should be expected process is relapse because it's part of a disease process, right? We're all, there's no shame in that. Right? It's to be expected, just like a blood sugar can bump up, right? Just like an oxygen can drop if I don't have my mask on. So if we have those people in those cycles, but we're able to deliver drugs that don't have that drop or plateau, guess what happens? You could turn down that baboon that's screaming in our minds from the midbrain. You can talk about the frontal lobe. That's what we're about, right? I think that's what we're talking about. We want to re-engage this wonderfully created apparatus that doesn't have any other comparison on the animal world, maybe like orcas or something, but like we want to re-engage this. Fundamentally, I never really appreciated just how normal I was in my recovery process until a psychiatrist told me the midbrain is survival. It's designed to hit the button quicker than your upper brain, because the upper brain has time to sit back and have tea and crumpets and think about our higher life. But if I'm out there trying to survive and get my next drink of water, get my next meal, that needs to be a priority message. Well, addiction gets into that queue, right? Now we're delivering medicines understanding that process. So we give people time with long-acting injectable drugs so they can have a couple of moons, a couple of 2 or 3 times around this globe of the sun of ours, and they can have experiences like, you know what, I went through Christmas, I thought that was going to be a big hang-up. I got strength now. I got agency. I know I have people in my community, my tribe. I know medically I got a doctor like Dr. Gonzales who's not going to keep me addicted to something because he's in recovery. He doesn't want to make more addicts. He wants to give people appropriate breathers and tourniquets until they can pivot off and they can internalize their recovery. Same thing applies to these drugs. And also, we learned that maybe keeping people alive is the entire freaking mission of us. Maybe we shouldn't be so judgy on someone that is on a drug like methadone or buprenorphine. You know, I go into these rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous all the time. Sorry, I'm going to call them out, but they tell people they're still addicted. Well, yeah, bro, so are you. You know, we all are. We're designed to be addicted because addiction to something that I need for life, that's how we breathe. That's how we get food. This is just something that we created with our Pandora box of this. We opened the box too soon, man. We opened like things to like, you know, really powerful opioids, really strong stimulants. We opened that before we're ready to absorb it. But this panel right here, this is the absorption process, and we're mobilizing, we're talking about it. So that's what gives me hope and encouragement. Finally, now I have validity. I'm considered a real doctor, that I am sitting at the table with evidence-based tools, working in a multiple disciplined area with people who can engage that I can't. And I'm listening to people too. I'm an open mind. You know, Marcus and I, we go way back. He has great ideas, and I love his shop. His shop is a place, it's a third space of adjacency to people who are just living their lives. They don't mean to cause anybody harm. Don't want anybody to become addicted forever. But guess what? Discussions happen there, right? Real discussions, true discussions without judgment, you know, without casting heuristics on people. And ideas are cast like, hey, look, wouldn't it be weird if I could get a van and drive it down and just treat people? Do it. Do it. You know, it has evidence now. So we're in a landscape of like, these drugs are pushing our ability to be creative. And we are freaking creative. You know? We are a really creative species. And that's what gives me hope at the end of the day, regardless on any matter. So.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Gonzales. And you spoke really well to mobilizing our evidence-based work. And also our goal is to keep people alive. That's what we're here to do. And so, Mr. Bosley, what should counselors be doing now to prepare themselves professionally for the next wave of opioid-related crisis?
Counselors should be preparing now by strengthening both their clinical skills and their understanding of the evolving opioid epidemic. First, professionals should pursue ongoing education focused on synthetic opioids, overdose response, education specifically focused on synthetic opioids, co-occurring disorders, trauma, and, you know, probably medicated assisted therapies. Understand withdrawal progression, fentanyl-related overdose symptoms, and polysubstance interactions is essential. Second, counselors should become more stronger in crisis intervention, engaging strategies. Many individuals struggling with opioids today in treatment with significant distrust, hopelessness, and grief, legal involvement, and family instability. Building a rapport and retaining client treatment may be one of the most important clinical skills moving forward. Number three, the professionals should improve collaboration with medical providers such as Dr. Gonzales, peer specialists, recovery coaches, hospitals, and community. Finally, we must prioritize their wellness and supervision, and with high acuity opioid cases, and that can lead to burnout, compassion, and fatigue. So we must go through supervision as counselors also. We just can't treat, because what happens to us, we eventually start burning out. We start eventually looking towards something that we didn't need to look towards before. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of different things that we must do to start reserving ourselves, reserving our brains. The hustle and the bustle of not only just creating the work for a job, you know, doing this work for a job, and then having to treat, and then having to treat other people. You must treat yourself. Go on a vacation, take a break, speak to somebody else, have some fun. So just counselors just sitting there counseling other people all the time, that's going to probably be one of the worst things that you can do. You eventually, and I'm not saying that you won't, you will eventually end up in the same place with the people that you're treating if you don't start taking the time to talk to yourself. I speak with Dr. Gonzales a lot of times, just, hey, bro, what's going on? What you doing? Just to get something that's off of me. He speaks to me just to get some of this stuff off of him. We create different ideas, different approaches, just to get a lot of this weight off of us. We're speaking with individuals. Like me and Carol. I speak with Carol. Carol helped me with the store. They give us a box of Narcan. I'm saying it's a box. They give us Narcan. They give us all this kind of stuff to help move into the area, so we can take this stuff to other people. So when people come to our store, HSA is sitting right there on the side. When you first enter to the left, you see our box that you could drop your meds in. That's something that she does for us. You see the Narcan sitting right there, free. You see fentanyl test strips that are free that you guys are providing to help individuals out. So that's what we should be doing to prepare for this opioid crisis, giving people the tools that they need. Like right now, we're going to people have been coming in since we've been talking about this synthetic opioids. They've been coming in getting Narcan 2 at a time, because you're going to need 2 or more doses just to get yourself back to stable. So they're going to with this, and I'm thankful for you guys, thankful for Dr. Gonzales for helping us out, and everybody. So that's it.
Thank you so much.
No
and
problem.
Kara, lastly, what is Northeast Delta doing now to help reduce overdose?
All right, so we do a lot. So one of the things that we do is we monitor trends to better understand and respond to the epidemic. For example, like I stated, when I first started, it was prescription opioids and heroin. Then the next trend we saw was fentanyl making its way into our communities. Then the next big thing we started hearing about was xylazine. And the dangers of it and how it was impacting. And for those, if you're not familiar with the term xylazine, we've all saw commercials or videos or reels across social media where people were looking like zombies after they had used. So that was that xylazine trend that we saw. And now we're talking about cychlorphine. So we are monitoring the trends, knowing what's in our area, knowing what's coming around, knowing that it is here, and tailoring our responses to it. We're also advancing research by collecting and analyzing data. Dr. Carroll, we're approaching the end of the fiscal year. And so what do we do at the end of that fiscal year? Data reports, data reports, data reports, what we have done, what we have seen, who we have served, how many we've served, how much Narcan we've distributed, how many lives we've potentially saved. And then we've also been working to build our capacity here within Northeast Louisiana. That's a part of the overall state goal, but it's also our focus here is ensuring that it doesn't work if Northeast Delta is the only one that has the Narcan. We supply the Narcan to anyone, any place, anytime, in any capacity. We work to support other providers and healthcare systems and taxpayers within our network, within our region, with data, tools, and evidence-based practices in decision-making and programming so that they are equipped with and they know how to respond. They're educated on, they're aware of different things, whether it's a class for middle schoolers, whether it is a Generation RX program for seniors, whether it's a 30-second commercial just saying, hey, be alert and aware, or pamphlets or flyers or vending machines and freestanding Narcan boxes. We have all those things throughout our 12 parish service area. And then our overall goal, increasing public awareness alongside of distributing that Narcan. Remember what I said, only 5.6% of people actually carry it. So we're trying to educate the community on the benefits of Narcan, but also educate them on the importance of carrying it. You never know when you're going to need it. You never know whose life you can save. And something Dr. Gonzales said earlier, when I do the Narcan trainings and different things, I always tell people, you have to take away and step back and not think about what your personal viewpoint is on substance use. We're all human. And so even if you can't step away and release that bias, that stigma that exists, think about the person. Think about the lives that are connected to those individuals. I tell people all the time, those people that are addicted are someone's mother, father, sister, brother, auntie, uncle, mom, or dad. And Janice said something last week that was really important when she said, when you all were speaking about the moms in the RISE facility, and she said, it's about helping those moms reclaim their role in their family. And so that's what we do. Everything that we do is about helping those individuals reclaim their lives and get back to living to their full human potential.
Thank you so much, Kara. At this time, we will be ending our NED Talk Transformation Thursday. If you want more information about sponsorships, events, or any of our services at Northeast Delta HSA, please visit our website at northeastdeltahsa.org or call us at 1-800-256-2522. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and thank you again to our wonderful guests, Dr. Gonzales with New Hope Addiction Recovery, Mr. Marcus Bosley with the Bosley Clinic, and Kara Etienne with Northeast Delta Human Services Authority. If you want to stay up to date on all our programs and events, the best way to do that is to follow the Phoenix on social media through Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, and X at NED Delta HSA. We'll see you next time.